For months. That's how long it had been since Daniel passed. And in Pinewood Estates, the picture-perfect American suburb where every blade of grass had to stand at attention and every flag waved exactly 3 by 5, the air still felt thick enough to choke on. His toothbrush sat untouched in the holder. His slippers lined up by the bed like they were waiting for him to come home from work. But the one thing I couldn't bring myself to touch until that morning was his old SUV. It sat in our driveway like a dusty ghost, baking under the relentless sun while the HOA signs on every corner sneered. Lawn height, precisely 2.5 inches. No visible toys after 5 p.m. Approved paint colors only. I'd paid the last 3 fines without a fight. $2.50 for excessive morning weeds, another $150 for unapproved wreath size, and the kicker, $300 for failure to maintain curb appeal during bereavement. Karen Thompson, our beloved HOA president, had delivered each notice personally, pearls gleaming, voice dripping honey. It's for the good of the community. Grace, dear, rules keep us civilized. Her smile never reached those hawk eyes that scanned every yard like a prison warden. She'd even whispered at the last board meeting that some widows let things slide. Perhaps Grace needs extra guidance. The neighbors nodded politely while I sat there silent, fists clenched under the table. I'd learned the hard way. Fight Karen openly and you got buried in paperwork. This morning something snapped. I grabbed the keys with shaking hands and stepped outside. The summer heat wrapped around me, but goosebumps prickled anyway. I opened the driver's door. The seat still smelled like Daniel's cologne mixed with stale coffee. Okay, Daniel, I whispered, voice cracking. Time to sell this thing. The HOA vultures are circling, and I need the cash to keep feeding their fines. I started with the back seat, old receipts, one of Sophie's hair clips, an empty water bottle, then the glove compartment, insurance papers, a phone charger, a worn-out pen. But tucked away in the back, hidden under a manila folder, sat a small black USB drive. No label. No explanation. Just there. Daniel wasn't the sneaky type. Or at least I'd thought so after 10 years of marriage and raising 13-year-old Sophie together. My heart did this weird stutter. I almost tossed it in the trash, probably old tax files or something boring. But that tiny voice in my head wouldn't shut up. I took it inside, plugged it into my laptop in the quiet kitchen while Sophie was at school. A folder popped up labeled for Grace, if you ever find this. My breath caught. Inside, dozens of files, documents, photos, audio recordings. I clicked the first one. A letter. Daniel's handwriting filled the screen. Heavy and careful. Grace, if you're reading this, I'm gone and the truth is out. I never wanted to hide anything from you, but Pinewood's rules, and especially Karen, left me no choice. My fingers trembled. Then the photos loaded. Daniel standing beside a woman I'd never seen, warm eyes, tired smile, next to a little boy about 8, holding Daniel's hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. Another shot, the boy on Daniel's shoulders at the park, both laughing under the sun. A third, the woman, Isabel, the file named her, kneeling to tie the boy's shoe while Daniel watched from the curb. The room spun. Leo. That was the boy's name in the captions. My chest tightened so hard I couldn't breathe. This wasn't just some random neighbor. The dates lined up with the last 4 years of our life. Monthly transfers in the bank files, modest, regular, always to Isabel R., and an address right here in Pinewood. The older section near the back gate where the houses needed paint and the lawns sometimes dared to grow longer than regulation. I wasn't angry yet. Not really. It was that cold. Underwater numbness again. The same feeling I'd had at his funeral. The man I buried with tears and love in my heart had been living a second life 2 miles from our front door. And Karen, always Karen, had been circling like a shark smelling blood. I sat there until the sun dipped, replaying the audio clips. Daniel's voice. calm and steady. Isabel, the fine came today. I'll cover it tonight after dark, so she doesn't see my truck. Karen can't know I'm helping, or she'll turn on Grace and Sophie next. Another clip. Karen's saccharine tone on a recorded call to Isabel. Sweetheart, that bike left out one more time, and we'll have to lien the property. Rules are rules, for the community's sake. The hypocrisy hit like a slap. Karen waived violations for her golf buddies all the time. I'd seen the exceptions in the minutes. But for Isabel, a single mom scraping by after her husband left, it was war. I didn't sleep that night. The USB burned in my palm like it was made of fire. By morning, the numbness cracked open into something sharper, need. I had to know. I told Sophie I was running to the market. She just nodded over her cereal, eyes distant the way they'd been since the funeral. 20 minutes later, I was parked across from Isabel's house. Old but neat. Flower pots on the sills, probably the wrong shade of terracotta according to Karen's color chart. The door opened, and there she was, grocery bag in one hand, Leo trailing behind. His hair was thick and dark, same ears as No. I forced a thought down. Isabel knelt to fix his shoelace, voice soft and musical. Leo said something that made her laugh. Then he pulled a small leather keychain from his pocket, Daniel's stitching, the exact same pattern he'd made for Sophie years ago with their initials. My stomach twisted. This wasn't stolen love. This was care. Quiet. Hidden. Midnight-level care. And the only reason it stayed secret? Karen, the queen of Pinewood Estates who'd spent 4 years terrorizing this woman with fines she couldn't pay. Daniel had been the shield. And now he was gone, leaving me holding the evidence while Karen circled our house like a vulture. Nothing in my life would ever be the same. I sat frozen in the car until they turned the corner, then drove home on autopilot. Sophie's bike lay in the grass, another future fine. No doubt. The sight cracked something inside me. There were 2 kids in this story now. Sophie, who still cried for her dad at night, and Leo, who thought Daniel was just the nice man who fixed his bike after dark. I made lunch, folded laundry, even laughed when Sophie told me her science teacher got hit in the face with a foam rocket. But inside I was crumbling. Every time I looked at her, same chin tilt as Daniel, I wondered which version of my husband was real. That night she found the USB. I left it plugged in by mistake while rinsing dishes. Her shout cut through the house. Mom. I dropped the plate. She stood in the living room, screen glowing behind her with a photo of Daniel and Leo at the park. Who is that kid? Why is Dad holding him like that's his son? Her voice shook. I walked over slowly, legs like lead. Sophie, breathe. I just found out 2 days ago. Is he Dad's kid? Do I have a brother? Tears spilled. I whispered I didn't know yet. She yanked her hand away when I reached for it. And you didn't tell me? You were protecting me from what? The truth that Dad had another family? The word family broke on her lips. I saw the wound reopen, rawer than the day we buried him. She stormed upstairs. I left mac and cheese outside her door. It stayed untouched. Through the wall, I heard her sobs, each one stabbing deeper than Karen's fines ever could. 2 days of silence from Sophie. 2 days of Karen texting me gentle reminders about the lawn. I drove back to Isabel's, this time knocking. She opened the door in a faded blue shirt, hair pulled back, eyes tired but kind. Grace, she said softly, like she'd been expecting me. I thought one day you might come. Inside, the apartment was small but warm. Leo's sneakers by the door, toys stacked neatly. She offered tea. I couldn't sit. Is Leo Daniel's son? I asked bluntly. She took a long breath. No, not biologically. The story poured out. She met Daniel at the hospital when Leo had pneumonia and she had no insurance. He paid for medicine, sat with her, gave her his card. Then the fine started, Karen's campaign. Bike on lawn, $200. Wrong paint touch-up, $350. Flag not regulation, $150. Isabel was drowning. Daniel started showing up after dark, paying the fines anonymously, fixing violations so Karen's inspectors wouldn't notice. He never crossed any lines. He talked about you and Sophie constantly. He was terrified Karen would retaliate if she knew he was helping the troublemaker. She handed me a thin envelope. He wrote this for you, in case. I left clutching it, head spinning. Karen wasn't just a busybody. She was a bully with bylaws. And Daniel had been the only one brave enough to fight her in the shadows. Back home, I waited until the house was quiet, then opened the letter. Grace, if you're reading this, everything's out. I'm sorry. Karen had been targeting Isabel for years. Personal grudge because Isabel once complained about her at a meeting. I couldn't tell you. She'd have turned the board on us next. Fines would double. Rumors would start. I was protecting our family by protecting hers. I swear I never love her the way I love you. But that boy, he needed someone. And I couldn't walk away. Tears blurred the page. He documented everything. Recordings of Karen's threats. Photos of her waiving rules for friends while hammering Isabel. You're the strongest person I know. Tell Sophie I'm sorry and that I love her more than she'll ever understand. The second letter was for her. I didn't open it. That was hers. The next morning, I slid it under Sophie's door. She read it in silence, then whispered, I don't hate him, but I don't trust him either. It was enough. A few days later, while driving to the store, I said quietly, I'm going back to see them. Sophie stared out the window. Can I come? The silence on the drive was thick with everything unsaid. When we pulled up, Isabel was waiting, Leo half hidden behind her leg. Sophie climbed out slowly, arms crossed. No hugs, no smiles, just two kids sizing each other up. Inside, Leo pointed at Sophie's bracelet. That's cool. Thanks. My dad made it. Leo pulled an identical one from his pocket. Worn. Loved. Mine too. He said I was brave. Sophie froze. The crack in the ice was tiny, but I saw it. Karen, meanwhile, smelled weakness. She left another notice that afternoon. Unkempt appearance due to emotional distress. $400. Community standards must be upheld. Her note ended with the same fake concern. We're all here for you. Grace. The hypocrisy boiled. I paid it, but I also copied every file on that USB. I was done enduring silently. The Queen of Pinewood was about to learn what happens when the peasants stop bowing. The fines kept coming like clockwork. Karen's weekly courtesy texts, just a reminder. Dear, curb appeal affects property values for everyone. She'd started whispering at the mailbox cluster that poor Grace seems overwhelmed. Perhaps we should suggest a yard service. Translation. She was laying groundwork to vote me out if I pushed back. I smiled politely, paid every penalty, and watched. That was my power now, patience. Daniel had taught me that without saying a word. I read the full USB files that week while Sophie was at school. Audio after audio of Karen on the phone with Isabel. If you don't pay by Friday, the lien process starts. And don't think your mystery helper can save you forever. Once Daniel's gone, you're finished. One clip made my blood run cold. Karen at a board meeting bragging. I've got the single mom section under control. A few more fines and they'll sell. Property values will soar. She'd even ignored her own violations. Her American flag was 6 inches too wide. But who would dare report the president? I started piecing together the timeline. Daniel's late nights at the office were actually midnight repair runs to Isabel's. Painting trim the approved beige. Mowing at 2 a.m. so inspectors wouldn't see. He'd kept a secret ledger of every dollar spent. Every violation dodged. The photos weren't romantic. They were proof of quiet rebellion. And the letter made it crystal clear. Karen's been waiting for an excuse since Isabel questioned her at last year's meeting. If she links me to them, she'll double our fines. Spread rumors about our marriage. I chose the shadows to keep you both safe. Sophie read her letter 3 times that night. She came downstairs red-eyed but steady. He was fighting the witch. Wasn't he? I nodded. Yeah, baby. In the only way he could. We didn't hug Karen style. We just sat on the couch in the dark. The USB between us like a loaded gun. The escalation hit when Karen called an emergency HOA meeting to address declining standards in the lower section. Translation: she was gunning for Isabel again. I went alone, sat in the back row while Karen banged her gavel. Pearls shining under the fluorescent lights. We cannot allow certain residents to drag down our community values, she purred. Fines must be enforced equally. The room murmured agreement until I raised my hand. Actually, Karen, I have evidence they're not enforced equally at all. She smiled that saccharine smile. Grace, dear, this isn't the time. I cut her off softly. Oh, but it is. I didn't play the audio yet. I just let the thread hang. Her eyes narrowed. After the meeting, she cornered me in the parking lot. Whatever you think you have. Grace, it won't matter. Rules are rules. I looked her dead in the eye for the first time. And liars get exposed. That night, Sophie asked if we could visit Isabel again. We went the next Saturday with cookies and one of Sophie's old books. Leo's eyes lit up. Thanks. He hugged the book like treasure. Sophie shrugged, trying to play it cool. The robot part is funny. They disappeared into his room while Isabel and I washed dishes. You raised a good girl, she said quietly. I smiled. You've done amazing with Leo despite everything Karen threw at you. The comfortable silence broke when Leo ran out waving his bracelet. Sophie, look. Mine matches yours exactly. Sophie stared, then whispered. He made one for me when I was 6, said I was brave too. The kid shared a real smile then, the first crack in the wall. On the drive home, Sophie turned the little keychain Leo had given her over in her hands. Dad would have liked this, right? Us doing this. Yeah, I said. He fought so we could. But Karen wasn't done. Monday brought certified mail, a $1,000 fine for multiple unresolved violations, and a threat of foreclosure proceedings if unpaid within 30 days. Attached was a note. We all grieve. Grace. But the community must come first. The black humor hit me then. Karen lecturing about community while she'd spent years destroying one single mom's life, and now mine. I paid it, quietly, and I started preparing. I burned copies of the USB onto 3 drives. I printed stills of Karen's selective enforcement. I timed the audio clips. Daniel had gathered the ammunition. I was just the one who would finally fire it. The neighborhood felt it, the tension before storm. Mrs. Alvarez from 2 doors down whispered at the mailbox. Karen's been extra nasty since you started asking questions. I just smiled. She has no idea what's coming. Inside, though, my heart raced. One wrong move, and Karen would bury us all. But I'd watched her for months. I knew her weaknesses, ego, fear of exposure, and that desperate need to stay on top. I was going to give her exactly what she deserved in front of the entire board. The monthly HOA meeting was packed. Plastic chairs squeaked under nervous neighbors. The air smelled of coffee and fear. Karen sat at the head table in her signature navy blazer, gavel gleaming like a scepter. We'll start with new business, she announced. Voice syrupy. Several residents have expressed concern about declining standards in the lower section. Her eyes flicked to me. I sat in the front row this time, USB drive in my pocket like a live grenade. She droned on about equal enforcement and protecting property values. A few heads nodded. Then she called for any comments. I stood. The room went dead quiet. Actually, Karen, I have some evidence about how rules are really enforced. I plugged the drive into the projector they use for slideshows. The first photo filled the wall. Karen waving a $500 fine for her best friend's oversized fountain, while Isabel's violation notice for the same infraction sat right beside it. Gasps rippled. Karen's smile froze. Grace, this is hardly appropriate. I hit play on the first audio. Her own voice filled the room. Crystal clear. If you don't pay by Friday. Isabel, the lean process starts. And don't think your mystery helper can save you forever. Once Daniel's gone, you're finished. The date stamp proved it was recorded 3 weeks before Daniel died. The room exploded. Is that you? Karen, someone shouted. Another voice. You waived my fence fine last year, but hammered the single mom? Karen gripped the gavel like a weapon. That's taken out of context. I played the next clip. Her at the board meeting bragging about controlling the lower section and forcing sales for higher values. Her face drained of color, the same color as her over-pruned roses that she fined everyone else for touching. I kept my voice steady, the way Daniel would have wanted. My husband didn't have a secret affair. He had a secret war against you. He paid every fine you threw at Isabel. He fixed violations at midnight so your inspectors wouldn't notice. He did it because you were trying to drive her out. And after he died, you came after me, extra fines. Rumors, all to keep control. I clicked through the ledger photos, the transfer records, the timestamps matching every penalty Karen had issued. The board members shifted in their seats. Mr. Hargrove, usually Karen's yes man, cleared his throat. We need a vote on new leadership. Immediately, Karen stood, pearls clacking. You can't do this. I built this community. A neighbor in the back laughed bitterly. You bled it dry. The vote was swift, 8-1. Karen Thompson was removed as president effective immediately. The new interim board, 3 regular residents, announced an audit of the last 3 years' fines. Karen's meltdown was poetry. This is a witch hunt. Rules are rules. Her voice cracked on the last word. I leaned in just enough for her to hear. And liars get exposed. Karen, exactly like you said. Her face twisted, half rage, half terror, as she realized the same bylaws she'd weaponized were now aimed at her. The meeting ended in applause. Real applause. People I'd barely spoken to patted my shoulder on the way out. Thank you, Grace. We were all scared of her. Outside, the night air felt lighter. Sophie waited in the car. I let her skip school for this. Did you get her? She asked, eyes wide. Yeah, baby. We got her. We drove straight to Isabel's. Leo was already bouncing at the door. Mom said the witch lost her crown. Isabel hugged me, real. No haga wa politenis. Daniel would be proud. But the real moment came when Sophie handed Leo her old book and said, Dad fought for you. Now we fight together. Leo grinned and pulled out the matching bracelet again. We match. Like a team. Sophie didn't hide her smile this time. The walls were gone. Karen tried one last pathetic move, texting me at midnight. You'll regret this. The board will see reason. I screenshot it and forwarded it to the new president. By morning, the community chat lit up with her final violation notice. Ironic. For an oversized flag on her own house. The queen who made the rules was now choking on them. It didn't happen overnight, but the change felt like spring after a long, frozen winter. The new HOA board, 3 normal people who actually lived here, voted to freeze all pending fines and review every penalty Karen had issued in the last 4 years. Refunds started rolling in. Isabel got back almost $8,000. My own account suddenly had breathing room. Neighbors who'd stayed silent for years began leaving flowers on my porch with notes. Thank you for speaking up. The ridiculous signs came down one by one. Lawn height. Mowed is fine. Toys welcome until sunset. Karen's empire of terror dissolved like cheap paint in the rain. She sold her house 3 weeks later, listed it quietly, and moved to some retirement community 2 states away. The rumor mill said she'd been asked to resign from her bridge club too. The last time I saw her, she was loading boxes into a moving truck. Pearl still on, but eyes hollow. She didn't wave. I didn't either. Just watch her drive away from a neighborhood she'd ruled like a petty dictator. Black humor at its finest. The woman who fined others for disturbing the peace, left in total silence. Sophie and I started visiting Isabel and Leo every Saturday. No more sneaking. No more midnight fixes. We brought cookies. They brought lemonade. The kids disappeared into Leo's room with their matching bracelets, and inside, jokes only they understood. One afternoon, I overheard Sophie say, "Dad made these so we'd find each other someday." Leo nodded solemnly. He was brave, too. Their laughter echoed through the house. Real, loud, rule-breaking laughter. Isabel and I sat on the porch watching them. "I never wanted to take anything from you," she said quietly. I shook my head. "You didn't. Life just gave us the same man in different ways." And Karen tried to take everything from both of us. We clinked glasses. No grand speeches. Just two moms who'd survived the same storm. One evening, Sophie curled up beside me on the couch, flipping through old photos. She paused at one of Daniel holding her as a baby. "Do you think he felt guilty?" I nodded. Every day. But he also felt proud. He fought the real monster here, the one wearing pearls and calling it community standards. Sophie leaned her head on my shoulder. "I don't miss the old version of him anymore. I miss the brave one. And I'm glad we get to keep being brave together." The USB sat in my nightstand now, no longer burning. It had done its job. Daniel hadn't been perfect. He'd lied by omission, kept secrets, carried burdens alone. But he'd done it to protect us from a system that rewarded bullies and punished kindness. And in the end, that quiet rebellion had toppled the queen. Pinewood Estates felt different now, lawns still green, but hearts a little freer. The new board even invited me to join. I politely declined. "I've had enough rules for one lifetime." They laughed. So did I. For the first time in months, the laugh didn't hurt. That night, I sat by the window holding Daniel's old leather bracelet, the one that started everything. The sky turned deep purple, and for the first time the silence felt peaceful instead of underwater. Our world had cracked open the day I found that USB. But from the pieces, something stronger grew. Not perfect, not simple, but real. Two families stitched together by one man's secret fight against the HOA Karen who thought she owned us all. And sometimes that's exactly how justice looks in the suburbs. Messy, slow, and ridiculously satisfying.